welcome to Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Advocacy Days. We're going to be discussing community inclusion and engagement today. We've got some wonderful guest speakers from the Washington DSHS, and then we're going to have Rod and his team speaking today. I'm just going to start out with a great video from King 5. There's going to be a new community center being built, and this could be a great way to get more people with IDD into the community to meet new people, and who knows, maybe there could be future opportunities for more people with IDD with this community center. So if we want to go ahead and show the video and get that going.
What happens when they turn 18. School, along with some government services, are no longer available, and that means there are very few programs for socializing, mentorships, and continued learning. That's why a group of parents and community activists have come together to launch the Summit Community Center right here in Seattle. Executive Director Alicia Nathan and Community Center member Devin Adelman are joining me now. Hello, thank you for being here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
So, Alicia, why is the Summit Community Center being created? I'm imagining for a lot of the reasons I just mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, it's a marginalized population. Young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities are constantly, trying to access resources and finding social connection and finding community, and there's just not a lot of places around to do that. When you exit the school system, there's a built-in support system when you're in school, and when you exit the school system, that all falls away. And families and young adults are left to navigate those systems, and then there's lack of services. So we are really, bringing the Summit Community Center to life to build social connection, build community, continued learning opportunities, and a place for young adults to be themselves and not have to transform to what society expects of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that this is something that is really important that we're talking about. We're talking about neurodivergence. Devin, what are you most excited about when SCC opens?
I'm really excited to making new friends and to do advocacy workshops and also leadership opportunities.
What kind of things are going to be available, Alicia? Yeah,
so we have 4 pillars: recreation, education, community, and growth. But really, the center is focused on leadership, like Devin mentioned. We want a space for these young adults to really run the center and really be in control of what programming is offered. So we're going to have sports and fitness. We're going to have life skills like cooking and coding and things like that. But also member advisory board to tell us what programming you want to see and have happen there, and work and volunteer opportunities.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You're probably already on the advisory board at this.
Oh yeah, we were just joking that she's probably going to lead it. I mean,
You're going to lead. It's going to be all on you. Are you excited for? What are you excited for most? Is it the mentorships or?
Everything. I'm really excited for the center to open. I'm really looking forward to do more karaoke.
Oh yeah.
Sports viewing parties.
Oh, can I come for karaoke?
Yeah.
I'm coming. I'll be there.
And baking
You're more than welcome.
classes.
Baking classes.
Yeah.
I gotta ask. I know that this is something that you have probably looked forward to for a long time. How badly do we need something like this, Devin?
We definitely need this in this specific community for sure. For people with autism or with Down syndrome, CP, and people without disabilities as well. They can come to this to community and with a sense of belonging with other people, can see what we can do at this center.
Alicia, we were talking kind of about how the narrative, the conversation is changing when it comes to neurodiversity. What drew you to this work?
Actually, I grew up with an uncle who had Down syndrome, and my grandparents refused to put him in an institution, and so I I grew up around neurodiversity and saw what joy like going bowling brought to him. And then down the line, I'm a social worker and have spent my career working with families and adolescents navigating the system. And I just kept seeing time after time, you know, we could get resources hooked up or find funding options, but then the lack of services just fell off at that age. And so it just was like, you know, pulling teeth to try to find social opportunities and community. And it shouldn't be that way, especially outside of school and work. We all need lives outside of school and work. And so just a place to be your true self and really build connection. And so I just kept seeing that time and time again and decided that we needed to create a space for that. So, yeah.
I'm really excited for everyone and how I can just tell this place is going to be filled with so much warmth and laughter and love. Devin, future board member, what would you like people to know about the SCC?
I want them to know that this is a community for belonging into a community, for people to know that that we actually deserve this big time, for people to know that we are at the center, at the heart of Summit.
Yeah. You can tell there's a lot of heart. How can people get involved? Is there a way that anyone can get involved?
Yeah, I mean, there's volunteer opportunities, there's employment opportunities, funding and support. We're a nonprofit.
Maybe a podcast.
Maybe a podcast.
Maybe a podcast.
All the information is on our website, though, and you know, you can apply to be a member. So. Just keep spreading the word, right?
Okay.
Like that's the biggest thing, is let people know that we're here and spread the word in the community.
That's what we're here for too. I will see you at karaoke night.
Yes.
I'll be there with bells on. All right, the Summit Community Center is slated to open its doors March 6th, and if you are interested for a family member or volunteer options, your time and your talent.
All right. I just wanted to remind people, so this is a new community center that's about to be built in the Seattle area. There's no plans as of yet for DDA to be covering it or anything, but it's cool that it's kind of opening a door to future opportunities for more people with disabilities to engage in community inclusion and just more learning skills opportunities. So we're hopeful that maybe that can be something covered by DD in the future, but as the time it's still very new. But I hope you're able to be able to check it out. And then next up, if anyone
there's a hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
Hi, I actually know that they do accept DDA, and they actually are running some programs now with folks that are using their DDA waiver hours there. They're going to open the actual center next month, but they've actually already started classes.
That's wonderful to know. Thank you for clarifying that, Susan.
Absolutely. And I know they started off, since it is a brand new program and it is private, they started off with a very small age range. They've already recognized that they needed to expand that age range. It started out at 18 to 25 and they've expanded it to 18 to 29 right now. And they do anticipate it growing in scale as well as growing in the ability to support people with additional needs. So it is constantly growing and changing, and they would love to have as much input as possible. You can email me. I can put my email in the chat if people want to talk more, and I can direct them to Alicia Nathan, who's the executive director, for any additional comments or thoughts or plans.
Yes, thank you, Susan. I think, yeah, we would love to have your email in the chat. And but yeah, if anybody has any questions, it sounds like Susan is connected and can connect you with that. And I just think it's awesome that there's just another new opportunity for more community inclusion and engagement, and just we just need as much opportunities for people with disabilities as we can get. So I'm very excited for that just another open door there. Next, we're going to have Jessica Renner talk about her lived experience with living in the community.
My name is Jessica Renner. I am the mobilization manager for Self Advocates and Leadership SAIL. In my presentation today, I will talk about my experiences in trying to find extracurricular activities in the South King County area. I enjoy poetry and art classes, but because I don't know what is available in the Kent area, how the classes are set up, and how they operate, I end up traveling to nonprofits in Seattle, Provel and PC2 and Tacoma to participate and have fun. Places such as Kent Commons, for example, does not allow people with disabilities to see if the classrooms are accessible or if they can set the activities up in a way they can be successful while participating prior to paying. I don't know about you, but I want to make sure I can fully participate before committing to payment. Employees and staff in community inclusion settings needs to be educated in order to make it easier for people with disabilities to be included in the activities they are interested in within all counties in Washington. Situations such as this is why I feel like community access programs are important. Nobody, regardless of disability, should be isolated in their homes. They should be out in the community enjoying the things they love. In my experiences, people don't want to take the time to listen to what I have to say, even though I have valid points. However, when I made the decision to go back to school at Renton Technical College, I was able to easily access the disability resource services to make individual accommodations for me to make it easier for me to attend my classes while a student of the Engineering Design Technology program. The Renton Technical College staff was very welcoming and inviting, helping me get an electronic raise in lower desk, extra time when taking tests, my textbook transferred into an e-reader. For this reason, I need your help to raise awareness, because as I have come to find out, it really depends on who you talk to, as some people are more open than others when it comes to communicating with people with disabilities. I want all people everywhere to see the individual first and not the disabilities first. Does anyone have any comments or questions for me?
I'm just checking to see if there's any hands raised or anybody in the chat. I don't see anything, any questions or comments at the moment. But that was great, Jessica. Thank you for sharing your lived experience there. It's what people with disabilities want to do and how to engage in the community and what their interests are very important. And thank you for sharing.
Taylor, you do have Debbie Meyer's hands up.
Oh, let me check. Okay, Debbie, do you want to speak?
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute. I just wanted to thank Jessica for a great sharing. And I wanted to say that if you're still interested in Kent Commons, to please reach out to me. I happen to know someone over there and would be more than happy to help you since we're here in Kent too. So thank you again for sharing.
Okay. And any other questions or comments? I got some people thanking you for sharing your video, Jessica. Also, Diana, Michelle asked me if there's any way we could share the video clip of the community center from King 5 into the chat. She wants to share that with a newsletter.
Yes, I'll put them in there.
Awesome. All right. And if there's no other questions or comments, we will move on and have Rod Duncan and his team take the floor.
Right. Thank you, Taylor. My name is Rod Duncan. I'm the Community Inclusion and Transition Program Manager with Developmental Disabilities Administration. And thank you, Jessica, for opening. It absolutely is important that individuals with disabilities are able to access their community and be part of their community. And DDA has a number of resources that support that. Today, we're going to talk specifically, though, about community inclusion. Last year, House Bill 1980 was passed that actually allows individuals to have both employment services and community inclusion services, which is a huge benefit to individuals. We, for a number of years, have focused on employment, and people had to make choices on whether they wanted to work or whether they wanted to have community inclusion activities. It's no longer a choice. People now, after they've participated for 9 months in employment services, are able to access both. So we really wanted to spend a little time today talking about community inclusion specifically, and how it's different from community engagement. Those are two services that are available on the waiver, but they are distinct in the goals and criteria for the services. We're not going to talk a lot about community engagement today because it is in the process of being changed. There's a proposal to change the definition around community engagement. However, it has not been approved by the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services yet. So we're not going to get into community engagement as much today. We're really focused on CI and how it actually is distinguished from other supports and services that are available to support people to be in their communities. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Carrie. She'll be the one taking the lead with the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Carrie Jarvis, she, her, and I'm the Community Inclusion and Transition Program Coordinator out of DDA headquarters in Lacey. So let me know if y'all have any difficulty seeing my screen or need me to slow down, please. So what are community inclusion services? Community inclusion services are individualized services provided in integrated community settings with other individuals without disabilities. The activities are based on client interests and provide opportunities typically experienced by the general public of similar age in their local community, accessible by public transit or a reasonable commute from their home. The goal of the service is to support clients to participate, contribute, and develop relationships with community members who are not paid staff. This is a direct quote from the FAQ of what are community inclusion services. And today we have someone who would like to share their story about how they are using community inclusion services. So I would like to introduce Mike and his mom, Connie, to please take the floor. Rod, do we know?
It looks like Connie's talking, but still muted.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. There you go, Connie.
Is that better?
Yep, that works.
Okay, sorry. So I'm Mike's mom, and I'm going to sort of be the spokesperson for him, but he's here and interested and might jump in and with a comment or a question. Mike is part of At Work in the greater Bellevue community. He has been with At Work for years and years, like 30 years or 25 years. Well, that's how old you are. But anyway, originally he was gainfully employed through At Work, workplaces like the mayor of Seattle, Norm Rice, worked in his office.
Worked in a cafeteria.
And you worked in a cafeteria. You worked for Safeco Insurance, delivering mail.
Back in Connecticut.
Lots of things that were great for him. Then he had some major trauma in his life, which did two things. One was related to talking to somebody at work, in the workplace, and he decided that if he was going to get in trouble for talking, he wouldn't talk at work. And this was about 20 years ago. And so became less able to be gainfully employed. Then he had another major family tragedy. And so that really affected him emotionally. So he had to go from being gainfully employed through at work to community inclusion. And community inclusion has been wonderful for him. He's had a lot of different job opportunities. Currently, he is working as a volunteer at Hope Link Food Bank in Bellevue. Once a week, we're trying to get him on 2 days a week. He absolutely loves it there. He feels like he's part of the community. He's quite independent there, so his CI trainer does not need to be there with him the whole time, sort of comes in at the end because Michael's work ethic is so wonderful that he doesn't want to leave. So they have to sort of encourage him to get on the access bus to leave the workplace. He is he's made many friends at in the typical environment at HopeLink. One young man in particular has taken Mike under his wing, and they have had a great relationship. This is really local because he lives in Bellevue, and the HopeLink office is in Bellevue. He loves having a purpose in life, loves to help people, and this is really helping. He engages with the clients who come into the food bank. He helps stack shelves. He helps box things up for them. He engages, and he does talk to some of the people periodically. So that's really great. So actually, with the four bullet points of community inclusion, for him, it is individualized because it meets his specific needs, and sort of he's on not an IEP, but an employment contract that's very individualized. It's local because it's within his community. He gets to integrate with other people in the community, both other volunteers at HopeLink and the clients there. And it has allowed him to build some really special relationships, not only with the clients and the other volunteers at HopeLink, but he loves his job coach, Tom Jacobs, and Michael said, "Is Tom going to be here?" I said, "Not today." So does anybody have any questions of us, of Mike or me?
Let's see. I don't see any hands raised, but if anyone wants to speak up or say anything about their journey and ask questions, feel free to now if you want. I do see some some comments in the chat, but they're kind of from just questions about community inclusion. Do you want me to say anything, or do you want me to make sure that, Robert, I see your hand raised.
How did your son got a job, and how did he get along with people?
He got the job through his job vendor and community inclusion vendor is At Work. The name of it is At Work.
Okay.
And he's been one of their clients for about 25 years.
50.
Wow.
That's because you're 50. So that's how he initially got the job, through his vendor.
Carrie, guess what?
What?
Carrie, guess what?
What?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Area.
Okay.
Connie, do you think it will ever
Okay.
turn
This is
into
the question.
a paid position?
Tammy, I'm sorry, we didn't quite get.
Yeah,
The question
Randy,
is,
this is William Elliott. My email is william.elliott@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
yeah, I think Tammy's question was whether Mike might be looking for paid employment in addition to this this opportunity. With the new rules, he can now have both. He can continue his job at his volunteer position at HopeLink, but he can now also pursue paid employment in addition to that if that's something he's interested in.
Thank you for that.
Okay, Chris Brandt in the chat said, "Hi, Mike and Connie. This is Chris from At Work. Thank you for trusting us for 25 years and for telling us your story today. Good to see your face, Mike. It's been a long time."
All right. Thanks,
Thank
Connie
you.
and Mike. Carrie, do you want to go ahead and
Mhm.
continue with the presentation then?
I had to unmute myself. Thank you so much, Connie and Mike. I really appreciate that. So now we're going to jump to community engagement services. Community engagement services introduce and connect clients to community supports, resources, and activities to help the waiver participant fully access their community. Community engagement is client-driven, designed to increase a waiver participant's involvement of a client in various activities in their community by facilitating connection. The ultimate goal for this service is to connect clients to community supports and to support a client's natural ability to communicate, socialize, and interact with others, increasing their confidence to engage in events without ongoing support through experiential learning. So now we have Scott, and Rod, is Scott here?
I'm not seeing that Scott or Tara were able to make it.
Okay.
We did get.
Oh, hi, Tara Lee.
Yeah, Tara Lee is here, and they
Oh,
just
good.
sent a video link, but I can't get to it right now.
Okay. So Rod, I am here if you want me to speak, or we can wait for the video from Diana.
I think, Tara Lee, do you want to go ahead and talk about Scott's story? And then if we can get the video up, Rod, or should we just let Tara Lee?
Yeah, go ahead, Tara. And Diane, let us know if you're able to get it up.
So Tara, real quick, I had a question. Is Scott at work? Is that why he wasn't able to make it today?
Yes, he is at work at the YMCA, which he is enjoying it and all the connections there. So he's sorry he could not make it here today. But we did record some good comments from him the other day. And I'm Tara Lee from PAVE, and I've been Scott's community guide for the last 3 years. And how Scott came to us is the fact that he had lost his job with the pandemic. So it started with the pandemic of losing his job, his housing was threatened, and then Jane, his DDA case manager, referred him to us. And so Scott and I decided that we were a good match to work together. We started first connecting Scott to resources that he needs, whether it was rental assistance or food. We did some community mapping in his neighborhood to find out what's close. He lives in a great place, so he was able to see that there's a grocery store close by. His church is close by that had a food bank, and since he was part of the Knights of Columbus, they're willing to help take care of him as well. So we're meeting our goals of kind of getting him stable, staying in contact throughout the pandemic. And then as it became safer, we started to explore some other avenues. Like we've gone out to a movie and met with friends, or we went to the Rainiers game. We went to a first responders event, and Scott is a middle-aged Black man, African American, and he was really scared. Like, he's scared of police cars for good reason, not just his disability with the loud sounds, but just the fact of what's happening in today's climate concerning, police officers and members of the African American community. And so we were able to go, like, he got very excited. He was able to explore, talk to a police officer without fear. He got to sit in the police car. He got to explore an ambulance, went in a SWAT car. And so that was something that kind of built his confidence and connecting him to, local first responders in the area as well. And I've seen Scott just kind of grow with more confidence. I've especially with his new job. He was at a state job for over 20 years. And so, the pandemic really turned his world upside down. So we've kind of made a friendship. He hangs out with my kids once in a while. We'll go to the park, we'll go take a walk, and try new things, just all in his community. So he feels like he's in part. And he basically said that just having a community guide just helps him get connected to community. He loves that it's all learning that it's inclusion and inclusive for him. So his story is really neat. So thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Hey, Kara, you want to go ahead and now we'll get into more community inclusion specifics, so that we really can point out the distinction about how the two services are different. And like I said earlier, specifically talking about what makes community inclusion services distinct.
Harry, you're muted.
I caught it. I was like, oh, I think I muted myself. It's got to happen at least once, right? During these presentations, somebody's going to start talking, and usually it's me. So what do these services look like? We'll be looking at a couple of examples of community goals and what services best. For each of the cases, we're going to discuss and decide if the goals or outcomes meet all 4 tenets that make up community inclusion. Is it individualized? Is it integrated? Is it local? And does it offer both contribution and connection? So those are key components of what community inclusion is. That contribution piece of it is really what sets it apart from community engagement. Is there another service that would best meet their goal? So as we go through this, maybe we identify a different service other than community inclusion, like community engagement. And all of the individuals in these cases are made up. They're not actual DDA clients or scenarios. So we just want to make sure that that's clear. And I'll go ahead and get going. Well, one of the points that I wanted to make sure this point out is that, with working with case managers, it's important to identify what the community goal is, what the unmet need is, and to help ensure that the waiver service is going to meet their goal. So I just wanted to make sure I put that out there. So we're really relying on our case managers to help identify that unmet need and then connect that to the service that we can offer through DDA. So I'll start off with Kim. She, her, lives out in the Yakima Valley on her parents' farm, has always loved tractors. Prior to COVID, Kim was working for a little over a year at a preschool helping with kids, but lost her job during the shutdown. Kim used her community inclusion services to support her in exploring local farms to get her connected to the local agricultural group, The Grange. So does this meet the 4 tenets of community inclusion? Is it individualized? Yes. It's exactly what Kim said that she wanted. Is it integrated? Yes. All of the members of The Grange are all community members. Is it local? Yes. It's within her local community. And maybe that might be a little bit further than what would be my local community, because I live in a city that I have access to a lot of things, but living out in the Yakima Valley, it's local for her. Does it offer contribution and connection? Yes. Kim is actively participating in the meetings and connecting with other farmers. So our second example of community inclusion is Ethan, they, them, has been working for a few years at a brewery washing and filling kegs, but wants to volunteer at their local Saturday farmers market in town. Now with concurrent services, Ethan can request community inclusion services to help them with a volunteer position at the market. Again, is this individualized? Yes, the farmers market matches Ethan's interests and goals. Is it integrated? The farmers market offers Ethan the opportunity to connect with many community members, including other volunteers. Is it local? Yeah, it is Ethan's local farmers market. Does it offer contribution and connection? The farmers market offers Ethan the opportunity to build connections with other volunteers and contribute to their community. There's also an opportunity for the paid supports to fade when when they've connected with the other volunteers. So here we're going to take a look at community engagement. Tim, they, them, lives in a suburban community south of Spokane. Tim really likes being around people and would like to go to their local coffee shop like their neighbor does. What waiver service would meet the goal of going to the coffee shop? So we're going to look at these 4 tenets of community inclusion because we're identifying the differences, right? Does it meet community inclusion? Is it individualized? Yes, it is exactly what they wanted to do. Is it integrated? Yes, it's just the local coffee shop. Is it local? Yep, it sounds like that's pretty close to where they live. But does it offer contribution and connection? No, because Tim said that they specifically wanted to just go to the local coffee shop, not sit in a meeting, not meet up with a group, a collective members. Like there's an old school knitting group that has been called the Stitch and Bitch for, since the 1940s, so if Tim wanted to go and meet up with the local, Stitch and Bitch group, then that would be one thing, but that's not what Tim said that they wanted. They wanted to go and just sit and watch and people watch. So that's why it doesn't meet the goal of community inclusion. If they wanted to go and just get to know the local barista, that does not also meet community inclusion because the barista is a paid support. They're paid to be there. Another example, John, him, lives in Seattle and has a goal of living in his own apartment. John also has a goal of connecting with a local advocacy group. He needs assistance in connecting with housing authorities and learning about the different areas of town. So what waiver service would be able to support these goals? Let's take a look at those 4 tenets of community inclusion to see if they match. Is it individualized? Yes, it's exactly what John said he wanted to do. Is it integrated? No. It's a self-advocacy group, so the other members would also have a disability. Is it local? We assume so, but we're not certain. I'm not sure where John is meeting up with the advocacy group. And does it offer contribution and connection? Yes, but we need the case manager to work with John to identify their unmet need and see if John agrees that they can have community engagement added to their PCSP. The community engagement provider can help John connect with housing authority, identify areas in the community that John would like to live in or feel comfortable in. The community engagement provider can also help facilitate housing applications and follow-up. So he is supported to make that connection. They can support John in identifying an advocacy group he could become a member of.
Well, I think it's important, specifically on this slide, and we're going to talk a little bit more in the next slide, that what we're focusing on is what is the goal of the individual, and then we're working to match the service to the goal, as opposed to the goal to the service. I mean, it's really individualized around what is it that the individual wants to do. We have a variety of services that can be authorized to support the person's goal. But like we're talking today, we're really trying to focus on what's appropriate for CI, but not discounting that these are still the goals the individual wants. There's just other services that are available that can support that. So we're not telling people they can't do whatever it is they want to do. There are just different services available to be able to meet those needs.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, absolutely. What's the goal? What's the unmet need? Working with the case manager to identify those and then matching the two.
Did you want to have Janine talk before we go to the next one?
Hi, ready for us?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
yeah. We have another individual wanting to talk about their community inclusion experiences.
Okay, so I'm Lisa Russell. I'm a community inclusion specialist for SCAC, and here with me is Janine.
I heard that SCAC.
Yeah, so Janine worked at SCAC for 40 years. She retired.
40 years.
Yeah, she retired about
I'm
4 years
retiring.
ago and is now in
We can
community
go.
inclusion. So she's here to talk about the activities that she's involved in, which are pretty close to
Activity.
home at some local senior centers mainly, and
And
the people, some of the people that you've met and friends that you've made. So, and these activities were chosen with through a process of discovery with Janine to find out what she likes to do. So, Janine, would you like to share with everybody what you're doing in community inclusion? What activities are you doing?
activity, like volleyball, bingo games,
And what's a new one that you started recently? The beanbag?
bingo, put marker on it. And,
Yeah. Did you just start beanbag baseball too?
beanbag, I like to throw it.
And you started making friends with
I
beanbag
make a
baseball?
friend, Sharon, Nancy, good friends.
Awesome.
All the time.
And at bingo?
Bingo,
Are there people there?
Sharon, Kathy, her doggy.
Yeah, you always see your dog Paisley there too. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
See,
Or does anyone have any questions for Janine?
Debbie has a question for you guys.
Of course I do. Hi, Janine. It's Debbie.
Hi.
So Janine, tell me what happens when you win at bingo.
Bingo. Bingo games. Kathy helps me play bingo.
What do you do?
Per marker.
And what do you do when you win? Debbie's wondering what you do when you
Fries,
win.
chocolate cake.
Do you
get to
say
choose your
bingo?
prize.
Nice.
Good to see you, Janine. Nice work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd be 7 years old.
Yeah, you are over 70. That's right.
I'm 70 years old.
Okay, thank you, Janine.
All right.
Thank you very much, Janine, for sharing your story.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions or comments about Janine and her experience? Not, we'll move on.
Can I take a minute to answer Stacy's question in the
Yes,
that was in the chat?
Yeah, I was gonna try to integrate, but I wasn't sure if you guys I wanted to make sure you guys got your speaking points first, but yes, please answer it. Thank you, Rod.
No, absolutely. I saw in the chat that Stacy talked about behavioral and communication supports, in CEI and CE. There was a recent change in our waiver, in September of this past year that now allows us to provide what we call individual technical assistance for individuals that are in fact receiving community inclusion services. And there are barriers to being able to be successful in those services. And so we now, historically, again, it was only available on employment services. It's now available to support both services.
Thanks, Rod. And so that's behavioral and communication supports that someone might need. So if they either have CE or CI and have communication behavioral support needs, they can ask for technical assistance.
CI specific. It's tied to
Only
the CI
CI.
service. Yeah, only CI.
Okay. And then what about personal
and
care?
employment and employment.
Sure. And then what about personal care?
Personal care is not an expectation under CI, because we are not looking to tether individuals to their provider. The goals are to, in fact, fade those supports as they build natural supports very similar, to the expectation we have with employment. And so there isn't an expectation that CI providers provide the personal care because it then tethers them to that.
So I think, one of the things that comes up a lot, Rod, is the barriers to people with super high support needs and behavior, communication, and personal care. That it means that they can't have activities more than an hour or two at a time if someone externally has to come in and provide that support, or if they just need that support for behavior communication throughout the time they're engaged. Are there conversations at DDA about how to address that?
Well, the person, depending on, what their circumstances are, their personal care providers are available to support the personal care needs when people are in their community.
All right. Brandy has her hand up real quick.
Yeah, hi everyone, this is Brandy. I was just going to add, I've seen some really great examples of that. For example, someone needs help in the restroom when the service is being designed. For example, the person wants to get out into the community, then that would be one of the accommodations that would be considered and developed as the location that the person is going to go to, or the club they're going to be part of is working. An example of that would be somebody worked at a school reading books to children and they needed assistance in the restroom. And so as part of designing that, they found a location where there was somebody who helped other folks with personal care types of supports and was willing and able, and set up an agreement with the individual to help them in the restroom during the day. And like Rod said as well, oftentimes we'll see, for example, if someone needs suctioning, that the person who provides that support when they're in the grocery store, or when they're at church, would also be providing that support when they were doing their community inclusion activity.
Okay.
Then
Carrie,
I
do
think
you want
there
to go
was a
ahead?
quick question. I was just gonna say, I think there's a quick question in there too about rates, the differences in rates between CI and CE and the rates that are coming up in the governor's budget. Is there any clarification on that, Rod?
It is an issue. Like I said in the chat, the CE rate did go up. CI is still, we did do a rate study and submitted a decision package, and we're waiting to see what the legislature ends up doing with that. We know that we do have capacity issues, to be able to provide the concurrent services that we're committed to being able to provide through the passage of House Bill 1980.
Thank you.
So do we want to move on, or do we want to address more questions for the next, or do we want to go on with the speakers in the next slide?
Let's finish up these slides. I think we just have the one,
Okay.
one or two.
Yeah, I know the chat is blooming, but I just want to keep in mind
Yep.
about your
Time.
Yeah,
for
your
sure.
time and stuff.
Thank you. Yes. So these next two examples, we're going to identify the goal, and then we're going to talk about how or what service we could use in order to support the individual. So Emily, her lives in a small community in South King County. Her goal is to meet new people and possibly volunteer in an outreach program or soup kitchen. She enjoys spending time at the butcher shop talking to the employees. Can the CI provider continue to bring Emily on Tuesdays after work to visit? So for Emily, she likes hanging out with people. She likes meeting and talking to the butcher at the butcher shop, and the employees are really nice to her. So it is individualized. It's meeting that need. Is it integrated? Yes, it's just the local butcher shop. Is it local? Yep. Again, it's where she likes to go. That's in her community. Does it offer contribution and connection? No, she does not have an opportunity to offer contribution. The employees are paid to be there. So if we change the story a little bit to say that the butcher was actively involved with the community outreach program and donated some of their products to the local soup kitchen in the city center, the butcher can, we can rely on the butcher to help us connect Emily with the person who runs the soup kitchen. And so then the CI provider could provide Emily with support in filling out the volunteer forms at the soup kitchen, so she could regularly volunteer, say every Saturday at the soup kitchen. And just changing that a little bit would allow us to use community inclusion services to support Emily and volunteering at the soup kitchen. But again, just meeting with the butcher at the local butcher shop does not allow us to use community inclusion. So we just kind of changed it a little bit, tweaked it so we could figure out how we can meet her goal, which was to possibly volunteer. She likes meeting new people, but we wanted to make sure that we are assisting her in meeting her goal. So then we have Jeff. Him lives in a supported living home. Jeff really likes hiking, being around animals, and doing arts and crafts. Jeff enjoys being around his housemates and would really like to go to the specialized recreation center with them. So the question is, can the community inclusion provider take Jeff to the specialized recreation center to meet up with his housemates? And we can take a look at the 4 tenets. Is it individualized? Yes, it is exactly what Jeff said he wanted to do. Is it integrated? No. The other members of Jeff's house are attending the specialized recreation center as well. Is it local? Yeah. And then does it offer contribution and connection? Yes, Jeff is able to offer contribution and connect with others, but it has to meet all 4 tenets, right? So that's that integrated piece that we're missing. We can change the story a little bit so that we can figure out how we can best meet his goal. So let's say that the provider explained to Jeff that while he might really enjoy being around his housemates, that does not meet the requirements for community inclusion. They could suggest looking into some of the other activities that Jeff enjoys. Say the provider also contacts the supported living home to discuss with the house manager that Jeff really, what the request is. Like Jeff wants to go to the specialized rec center with his housemates. So let's help Jeff make his voice heard so that he can do the things with his housemates and go there. But that's maybe the CI provider talking to the housemates. So the CI provider, maybe they help Jeff identify an urban hiking group, right? So we're going to meet that need of hiking, and we could use community inclusion for that. But the one thing that I'd like to point out is that Jeff doesn't qualify for community engagement because he lives in a supported living home. So his home, that group or that house that he lives in, the manager would have to be responsible for helping him connect with the specialized recreational center. So we just changed it a little bit by having the CI provider look into an urban hiking group or meeting the other goal around animals, and that doing the arts and crafts, that goal can be met through the supported living home. We just really wanted to make sure that we're encouraging everybody to be a part of their community, and whatever that looks like, just figuring out what those unmet needs are and matching the DDA services to those unmet needs. We also wanted to remind folks of the resources that are out there in your community. If you have questions about these services and would like to know more, Informing Families has a great website that has information about all the services that DDA has to offer. Contact your local county coordinators or talk to your DDA case resource manager. Those are going to be the best resources in trying to figure out how can DDA support you in your community. So, yeah, thank you.
So do we want to have Scott speak, or
Tammy has her hand raised.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Tammy.
Thank you.
I have a question concerning the GI under the integration part piece. Does it have to be total integration? What I mean by that is, let's say there were a couple people that had disabilities, however, the majority of the group was not disabled. Would that still qualify or not?
If it, if it's just a couple, of people with disabilities, and the intent of the business and or activity is a typically, it's there for typical adults, typical people to be participating in, then that is what we're looking for, is that level of integration. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I was just wanted to clarify that, please. Right. Thank you.
All right.
Margaret Lee.
You know, Rod, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all this, and it's very interesting and it's wonderful how people are getting out. But why couldn't this all be one service? I mean, it just seems like it's, you go through your different things about, is it individualized, integrated, local, and contributing and connection? And most of them have 3 and everything. I just don't understand why this couldn't be all one service. Am I just out of it?
You're not necessarily out of it. It is something that, certainly has been talked about, but it originally, they were different services on different waivers. And so it's as we've evolved that it's become where they're just so similar, because community engagement initially was only an IFS service, individual and family services waiver service, and wasn't available on the other waivers. And so
which one was that? Which one was that?
The community engagement. And then community inclusion was the service that was on the other waivers as an alternative to employment. If somebody had experienced the 9 months of employment and chose to no longer pursue employment, and they wanted a community inclusion instead. The passage of 1980 now allows for both to happen. People don't have to make choices between whether I want to work or whether I want to be part of my community. They can now do both, and that went into effect just this past January. So I'll plug now. Look forward to our community summit. We're way too soon to show real success stories in both, but we will be looking to do that so that really can show how it really helps to support a full life, being able to access both services.
Thank you, Rod. Yeah, you got a lot of popular questions on here. I know Corey had a lot of comments on here. So I'm kind of curious if Corey, do you want to address some of those comments in the chat? It seems like you had a lot to say. So if you want to maybe address that at all. Not.
Taylor, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was actually me, Luke Tully, at the Arc of Spokane. We had some like who was logged into which Zoom account confusion. So sorry about that. We were actually just talking about it on Teams. Okay. No, I didn't want to take away from all the wonderful stuff that the folks were sharing, and Rod and his team did a great job of trying to lay out, a very confusing topic. I don't know that any of it I would call sort of advocacy related, right? Like we brought up a couple of topics around what people can actually access for these services to be successful. I saw some people comment, which was really great, about, it does kind of depend on the case manager to be well trained to set those goals to figure out which is the proper service. And I think we've seen that to be confusing in the past. I think the comment I originally made that is the crisis for us and a lot of other providers is essentially we're not going to provide community engagement beyond July, June 29th unless the rates are appropriate. And that rate study was very clear what appropriate rates look like. The DDA then requested those rates, is my understanding, but the governor's budget proposal was drastically lower, was I think even lower than we are right now with sort of the COVID enhancement. And it's just not tenable to run a community inclusion program like that. And much like Margaret Lee pointed out, all this is so convoluted that it makes it incredibly difficult for the provider. It makes it incredibly difficult for DDA, but it also makes it incredibly difficult for the providers to plan and budget and have services and hire people and all those things when rates and programs. I mean, I'm hearing that community engagement is going to change. All that kind of stuff, it makes it just really, really challenging to do what we're doing. And unless the immediate issue of those rates are addressed, then we're not going to be able to fulfill that promise of dual services with the providers that are going to be out there or not.
Thank you for sharing that, Luke. I appreciate it. Lots of, like I said, lots of engagement in the chat, lots of good questions and feedback on this.
Yeah, and I don't want to ignore your position, Luke. I mean, it absolutely, we're well aware of that, but as you're well aware of, it's in the legislative hands at this point. We did put forward the decision package, recognizing that it is in fact an issue.
Yeah, and that was my point as well. Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other questions around that I've seen in the chat around case management training. We've put a lot of effort into providing case management training in preparation of these concurrent services. So yes, we're really focused on, like I said earlier, helping families and individuals identify what their goals are, and then applying the appropriate service to the goals that they have, without in any way making judgment calls or diminishing the need for any of the services. The analogy I always use, when I try to have these stories is, I need to have my hair cut and I need to have my laundry done, but I don't expect my barber to do my laundry. They're separate services. They're, and absolutely things that are important and needed in my life, but there are just different services to support those needs.
All right. Is it okay if I address, I know Diana's speaking in about 7 minutes on, do we want to address, like, we have a lot of comments in here. Is it okay if I address more, or do you want to move forward?
No, go ahead and address the questions in the chat.
Okay. Okay. I'm just trying to keep everybody, I'm just trying to consider our speakers, but I also want to consider everybody in the chat too. So what I'm trying to, sorry, there's so many.
No, I didn't see any other questions.
I just saw a lot of comments, mainly.
Yeah, lots of comments.
Like
the only one,
the pay rates, like, I know pay rates was one, but it looks like Luke answered some of that. But I know she was just wondering about specialized, Susan was wondering about specialized habilitation and the pay rates, how they're different from the inclusion engagement.
yeah, and I don't know the rates for specialized HEB, I'll be totally honest, and where they compare. The other comment that I saw in the chat that I want to address is when I talked, sounds like when I talked about the ability to provide individual technical assistance, there may be areas that feel that that's not available to them. So definitely, let us know about that if you are in fact struggling, so that we can work. We have a couple agencies that we contract with to provide the individual technical assistance, so we can support with that if in fact you're finding that a barrier in your local community.
Okay, thank you so much for your patience, Rod, and answering these questions. I really appreciate that. And I'm just going to go through and look real quick.
Yeah, this is Brandy. I know I'm helping you with chat, and I just want to throw out, there's a question about the 9-month time period of trying out employment before community inclusion. Can you folks talk a bit about that, please?
Sure. Yeah, as all of you are aware, or may not be aware, Washington State is a work first state. And what that means is we are in fact committed to individuals of working age to actually work and have jobs in the community. We definitely have heard over the years with community inclusion, that I don't have any money to participate in the community. And so it really, again, complements the two, that we all work so that we have an ability and have income to have things in our lives, beyond just working. But we do have the 9-month rule that was not replaced with this new legislation. And so it is continued to be expected that individuals will participate in DDA employment services for at least 9 months before they add and or replace individual employment. Obviously, our hope is that people aren't discouraged with employment and they continue on their pathway to employment, and we just add community inclusion to their plans. And again, the real benefit here is that they can in fact have both, and we can truly promote and support that fuller life.
Have one quick video of a woman named Rachel. We can share that one real quick. If Rod, does that sound okay? Can we do that one?
Real quick, Margaret Lee had her hand up, so let's.
Great, let's do that.
Rod, I'm really grateful for what you just said. I just need to put my feet on the ground and just speak. Our son Dan had Down syndrome. He's passed away now, but his employment, he was one of the first employed at Microsoft, and his employment made his life as normal as it could have been with all of his health concerns. And I think, he knew, he'd say, I've got money. And so he would participate that way in a lot of other activities, which was wonderful. But I would really fight if anybody was going to go try to take away the employment first thing away. I mean, we lead the country. We lead the country. And I would like to see people get more employment hours.
Right. Absolutely, and like I said, I really do. I'm thrilled with the 1980, the passage of that legislation, because all of us, we talk about it all the time, the work-life balance. We all experience it. Individuals with disabilities are no different. Years ago, I had a case manager terminate somebody's employment services and put them in community inclusion, and I immediately was like, well, wait a minute, she's got a great job. Why are you doing that? And the response was, she's fairly independent with her employment, but she doesn't have a life outside of that. And so the team chose to focus on life outside of work. And it was an agency that also did employment. And so they were able to flip back and forth if they needed to. But at that particular point in her life, the supporting her outside of employment was a higher priority for her. Now the choice doesn't have to be made. They can do both, which is what we all want. We talk constantly about work-life balance, and it isn't any different with people with disabilities who work.
Thank you, Rod, for addressing all these questions and comments. We really appreciate you and your team being here. It is about 11:10, so in order to keep on time, I ask if any remaining comments and concerns you direct to maybe DDA directly. So with that being said, we are going to take this and have Diana speak on the bills of interest. And also feel free to reach out to me if you guys need anything as well. So we'll continue with that. And thank you again, Rod and your team. Thank you so much for your patience and answering these questions and your presenting.
Thank you, Taylor. Boy, this has been a real interesting conversation, hasn't it? Okay, I'm going to, excuse me, share my screen with the bills of interest. Excuse me. And the first section of this, and this is on our website. If you go to the advocacy page, the drop down will take you to the bill tracker. And that has all these bills listed there, as well as the budget, the governor's budget proposal anyway so far, and hearings of interest for each week. So these are start out with the budget and tax things. There's a personal needs allowance that people in residential get to keep a little bit of the money out of their SSI. And right now it's $70 and they want to increase it to $100. So we'll watch to see what happens with those. And I'm not going to go through every bill, just try and cover some of the ones we're really working on. Foster care, we have people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in foster care. And we want to try and make sure that they get into DDA services when they're supposed to. There's also a property tax exemption for adult family homes. This is back this year, and hopefully we'll be able to get this all the way through the process, because housing is kind of like the hugest need. People need a place to live before they can do anything else. And right now, there are just not homes out there available. So when people start up an adult family home, and especially the ones that are specific to people with IDD, we need to make sure that those can be viable and be available for people. Let's look at this House Bill 1628. This is actually to create housing. Representative Frank Chop put this forward, and it would create a new DD trust account just for housing. And right now we just have only gotten like 3 to 5 million for a biennium of money to put towards building homes. And they just aren't, the builders don't want to take that small amount. And especially because people with IDD don't have much income. So the amount they can pay for rent is very small. And so these big developers can't get their money back from people paying a small amount of rent. So in our state, we have ways they can do it in grants where the money is just provided and not expected to be paid, or forgivable loans, which is a loan, but at the end of the time period, the loan is forgiven. So House Bill 1628 is a really important bill. It had a hearing yesterday, and there were so many people to testify, they had to have it again to finish up this morning. So we hope that will move on. It's scheduled to move out this week, and then it'll end up in House Finance, where we'll be talking about it again. So we're really keeping our eye on that one. Community residential, there are 2 bills, House and Senate, which are called companion bills. House Bill 1654 and Senate Bill 5506. The Senate bill is the one that seems to be moving. And there's been some problems within the bill. It very much is needed for children and adults who are stuck in hospitals and stuck in the state institutions, but have high needs, challenging behaviors, etc. And so this would bring about a new situation that can be applied to supported living or state operated living alternatives. This would provide people who were more trained in actually addressing behaviors and creating a plan around the person that includes a lot of people to help make it so that they don't have to end up in the hospital again. There's probably going to be a big fiscal note to it, but it's something that's desperately needed so we can unclog our hospital system and get people out of the state institutions that have been waiting to get out for a long time, but just don't have any housing or support. There are a number of what they call interstate compacts, and that just means that people of a certain profession, like speech and language or mental health, that means somebody who maybe lives in Colorado and is trained to do this and licensed, that we could use them as part of our workforce here in Washington. And so that would be helpful in all of these different areas where there is such a workforce shortage. We also, the 988 system is something that was implemented for mental health, was originally the idea, but they recognize that people with IDD often have co-occurring disorders. And so this bill is actually going to provide training to the people in these call centers on how to help people with disabilities as well. Music therapy, that's been around for a long time, and they've tried to get through licensure for it so that you don't just have anybody who can play a guitar saying music therapist. And that seems to be moving along this year. We also want to create new behavioral health support specialists, and they would have to meet a certain training criteria and pass a test, and then be licensed and be covered by Medicaid, because that's so often where those services are needed is by people who are covered on Medicaid. Eligibility for DDA services. Right now, people have to go through 3 evaluations during their growing up years. They go through the first evaluation, 3 or 4, or whenever they enter the DDA system. Then at age 10, they have to go through another evaluation. And it's not like people quit being disabled. It just doesn't work that way. And then at age 19, they go through another evaluation because they've been getting children's services up till then, and now they need to switch to adult services. So that first evaluation makes sense, and the one at 19 to switch to adult services makes sense. But we got that extra one in the middle that takes a lot of case manager time and other staff, and it's a burden on parents because they've got to try and find all the information that they've asked for. So this will stop that 10-year-old evaluation and just leave the beginning and when you go to adulthood. So that's House Bill 1407. House Bill 1580 is creating a new care coordinator with a rapid care team that would support children and youth who go into crisis, so that we can hopefully catch it while they're still in the community and they don't wind up in a hospital. So we're looking to see how this rolls out as well. And we just got to do something. All of our hospitals are getting clogged up with people with no medical need. And like the one young man who they did a news article on him, has been living in the emergency room, a little 8x8 room with no windows. He can't leave, he has to stay in there. And can you imagine living there for a year, full year, in little 8x8 room, no windows? You get cold grilled cheese sandwiches every day for lunch. That's not living, that's no quality of life. So we've got to do something to address this crisis of people going in the hospitals. Let's skip down here. There's a lot in education. One of the bills that we're really looking for is House Bill 1436. Oops. Right now, if you have 1,000 students in a district you're only allowed to have 13.5% of them to need special education services. Now, if you got 15% of your kids that really need it, well, you're not going to get paid for more than that 13.5. It's just something that's not needed. It's other states don't have a cap on it like that. They just fund the number of students who need that. And this bill will actually say that they're fully funding special education. You know, they had the lawsuit, so they worked on basic education to do a lot of funding there, but they did not fulfill the need for special education. So House Bill 1436 is kind of the best one out of all these as far as that. There is one other bill here, House Bill 1305. It's providing language access for everybody who needs it. But also the biggest piece of the bill is the burden of proof, changing that. So if a family does not feel the district has created a program that is really meeting that child's needs, well, they can file a OCR complaint and try and sue the district to get the right appropriate services. But when they go to court, it's up to the parent to prove that the school district isn't doing what they should be. Now, the parents, the school district has a attorney on retainer that shows up for them, and they don't have to do anything. But the parents have to try and get everything together, all the paperwork, and try and prove their case when they're not lawyers, or they have to hire a lawyer. Well, that burden of proof shouldn't be on the family. The school district creates the program. And so it's up to them to show that that program they created is meeting all of that child's needs. And that way, it's much more fair in the process. And it used to be that way. And a lot of other states have the burden of proof is on the district. So we'll be watching that and hoping that one goes through too. Restraints and isolation in schools. You know, every year seems like we've got another bill trying to address that. And there are actually districts that don't even comply with the law, they ignore it. But this one would prohibit schools from isolating kids in little rooms off away from everybody else. And it would restrict the amount of restraints they could do, which if they were educating and providing the services that every child needs in special education, they wouldn't need restraints and isolation. You know, it's kind of funny that these kids at school have to be restrained and isolated, but when they go home, their parents don't have to do that to them. So it just makes sense that they don't need it. They just need to have better training on what to do when there is a crisis. There's a lot more education ones here, and you can read through all of those. And then we have a section on civil rights and legal issues. Courthouse facility dogs is already in rules, and that would people with developmental disabilities, if they're in a court legal situation, they have the courthouse facility dog who can come and just kind of be a therapy dog that can give them comfort and help them feel a little more at ease trying to get through that. Let's see. We're running out of time here. Nothing About Us Without Us Act. This has been going for 3 years. And actually right now King 5 wanted to talk to people about this, so they contacted Representative Daria Farivar this morning and Ivan Nova Smith, who many of you know. They're interviewing her at noon. So there will be another King 5 story tonight about the Nothing About Us Without Us Act. And I think we'll leave it at there for now. Are there any questions about the bills? And I see Margaret Lee's hand up.
Yeah, you know me.
Yep.
Senate Bill 5511 by Senator Prawn, that education equity in every zip code. Is that going to go anywhere?
I don't think so. It hasn't even had a hearing yet.
Can you just give a couple of sentences so people will understand it?
Yeah, it's a budget thing. It would raise that cap. Remember, I said it's at 13.5%. It will raise it up to 15%. But it would also, one of the big things that's going to put a cost on it is offer year-round school calendars for districts. Instead of taking 3 months off in the summer, kids would just go to school year-round and probably have an extra, week holiday or something. So and they want to make sure that the special education programs are available everywhere. And that's why he called it the education equity in every zip code. He wants to make sure that special education services, you can get them no matter what district you move to. It should be the same. And currently it is not. Thanks, Margaret Lee. Any other questions? Okay, I am going to turn it back over to Taylor.
All right. Are we having Jessica kind of speak, wrap this up? I just what I saw on the agenda. I just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
She just wanted to say on how she could advocate, but unless if anybody has any other comments or questions. If not, we'll just move it on with Jessica and then we'll wrap it up.
After this briefing, you have many options to advocate with your legislators. You can schedule a Zoom meeting with your legislators. Email today's information to them. You can also email your legislators about bills that are important to you and to set up appointments with them. First, you can email your legislators about bills that are important to you and to set up appointments with them. You can also watch legislative action on TVW at http://www.tvw.org/www.tvw.org. You can sign in to testify at future hearings. You can sign in pro, con, or submit written testimony on a bill. Let me show you how it works. Go to www.leg.wa.gov and scroll down to let your voice be heard. Click on participating in the process, then click on testifying in a virtual hearing. Choose House or Senate, depending on which committee you want to testify at. We'll look at a House bill today. Select the House button. Then for this morning, let's look at Housing Human Services Committee, where many of our bills go to. Choose the date and time of the hearing. We'll pick this bill as an example. Then select the type of testimony you want to give. You can do live testimony virtually via Zoom. Just sign in with your position on the bill or submit written testimony. Today we will sign in to testify. Choose your position on the bill, pro, con, or other. Fill out the form with your name, email, full address, and phone number. If your name is hard to pronounce, you can sound it out on the pronunciation box. As an example, the pronunciation for Stacy Dime would be Sta-See-Dim. If your name is easy to pronounce, don't worry about filling out that box. Usually you will be testifying as an individual, but if you are part of a panel, you would enter your name and info as a new panelist, then add each person's info who will be on the panel after that. Finally, select I am not a robot. After you submit the registration form, an email will be sent to you with Zoom link information. Once you get the email, it has links to add it to your Outlook, Google, or Yahoo Calendar. Advocacy Day is a project of the ARC of Washington State and funded by the Washington State Developmental Disabilities Council. Be sure to join us for future advocacy days. Register for each advocacy day on our website at www.arcwa.org/advocacy-ds. We want to make sure you are satisfied with Advocacy Days, so be sure to fill out our feedback form. Your feedback helps us to continue improving and helping your voice to be heard. Let's walk through it together. Start at www.arcwa.org/advocacy-ds. Scroll down to the smiley faces that say your feedback matters and select click here. The link to the feedback form in Spanish is right below the link to the English version. Start by putting in your email address. Next, you select the advocacy day you're giving input for. Then you respond if this is your first advocacy day or not. Next, you pick the smiley faces that answer how you feel about the virtual advocacy day. Then you submit the form. Just as simple as that. Your input helps Diana and the ARC to know what you like, what you don't like, what is helpful, and what is not helpful. You can learn about these and more ideas to get involved on our website at www.arcwa.org and click on Advocacy Days. You can also contact us at sale@arcwa.org or Diana@arcwa.org if you need help. Are there any questions?
I don't see any hands raised, but thank you everybody for coming today. And I really appreciate all the interest everybody had in community inclusion and engagement. There was a lot of feedback, and it's nice to know that everybody is thinks this is just as important as we all do. So, and also I just want to remind people there are a couple of hearings today. If you want to sign in pro, or there's House and Human Services for Youth and Early Learning at 1:30, and then House Appropriations at 4. So I just wanted to give you a quick reminder on that. But if there's not any other questions, we will adjourn, and we hope everyone has a good rest of their week, and hope to see you next week. Thank you.